Let's jump right into this explainer. We are honestly living through a definitive turning point in human history right now. The explosive growth of AI isn't just some routine software update. It is a fundamental, ground-up shift in our economies, the way we interact, and even how we define creativity. Today, we're decoding this vision by drawing straight from a truly fascinating event, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman's recent Axel Springer Awards ceremony. It brought together tech visionaries and brilliant physicists to map out exactly where this is all heading.
The German Minister for Digital Transformation actually opened his remarks at the event with this legendary Arthur C. Clarke quote. And it perfectly captures the global mood right now, doesn't it? Think back to November 30th, 2022. When that early demo of ChatGPT dropped, it literally felt like a spark of pure magic just entered our everyday lives. That was the precise moment artificial intelligence shifted from being this abstract academic concept into a tangible, totally mind-bending experience for anyone with an internet connection.
And that feeling of magic translated into numbers humanity has literally never seen before. By January 2023, just weeks after it launched, ChatGPT hit a staggering 100 million users. That is the fastest growing consumer adoption in history. It completely bypassed all historical benchmarks, suddenly thrusting millions of people directly to the frontier of AI, letting them write code in minutes, plan vacations, and spin up entire stories out of thin air.
That brings us to Section 1, Rethinking Risk and Scale, and what it means to have the builder's mindset.
You know, when Sam Altman gets asked about his massive risk appetite for building these systems, he actually fundamentally rejects the standard definition of the word risk. He doesn't look at his work as some reckless gamble for a quick adrenaline rush. Instead, his entire framework is based on maximizing expected value. Basically, if the potential positive outcome, whether we're talking about curing diseases or sparking unprecedented economic growth, is astronomically high for humanity, it completely justifies the possibility of failure. So it's a deeply calculated pursuit of immense value, not just a blind leap in the dark.
But let's ground this high-level philosophy in physical reality for a second, because the sheer scale of the operation is absolutely staggering. Altman recently talked about visiting a gigawatt-class data center that was swarming with 7,000 construction workers on a single site. It is so easy to think of AI as this invisible thing floating in the cloud, but we are talking about multi-million-dollar server racks and massive power generation systems. Building AI at the frontier requires a level of physical infrastructure, capital, and complex supply chain management that rivals the biggest physical projects humanity has ever undertaken.
Moving on to Section 2, the global innovation race, and specifically, the European equation.
This unprecedented scale is really starting to expose some stark cultural differences when it comes to innovation. Over in Silicon Valley, failure is obviously unpleasant, but it is heavily tolerated. Innovators almost always get a second, third, or even fourth chance. Now contrast that with Europe's historical risk aversion, where failing at a startup can sometimes taint a professional's career forever. As Altman pointed out, a dynamic economy and true innovation require looking past failures. That cultural shift is absolutely necessary for any region trying to stay competitive in this global AI race.
Recognizing this friction, the German minister laid out a very clear three-pillar blueprint for Europe to catch up and remain competitive. Pillar 1 is pragmatism and realism, which essentially means smarter regulation that actually gives both small and large companies the necessary room to test, learn, and move fast. Pillar 2 is infrastructure, rapidly expanding those physical data centers and raw compute power. And Pillar 3 is adoption, urging industries to grab hold of AI and completely reinvent their business models. The takeaway here? Nations cannot afford to just be bystanders or mere customers of other people's innovation. They literally have to be builders.
And this urgent need to build leads directly into a massive concept right now, sovereign AI. As AI quickly becomes the actual nervous system of modern economies, countries are realizing they can't afford to be held hostage to shifting global politics or fragile alliances. Sovereign AI ensures that public sectors and major industries can reliably depend on the technology under any circumstance. This is exactly why we're seeing huge cross-border partnerships forming, like the recent one announced between OpenAI and the German software giant SAP. It's all about marrying national tech sovereignty with access to the absolute frontier of AI models.
Let's dive into Section 3, Navigating the AI Risks and Looking at Responsibility in the Age of AGI.
Now, the speakers at the ceremony didn't shy away from the dangers. They laid out 3 incredibly significant risks that society has got to actively mitigate. First is the alignment challenge.
basically ensuring that as these machines grow profoundly smarter, they continue to reflect human values and stay firmly under human direction. Second is the very real threat of disinformation. When AI can perfectly mimic reality, how do we maintain a shared sense of objective truth to keep democracy functioning? And third is the rapid economic disruption that automation is inevitably going to inflict on the workforce and our communities.
So how do we manage risks of that magnitude? The key is having strong foundational values. OpenAI's founding mission explicitly commits to ensuring AGI is used for the benefit of all, actively avoiding anything that harms humanity or unduly concentrates power. And these can't just be empty words on a website. They have to serve as daily operational anchors for the teams building this stuff. Because ultimately, fear is a poor guide, and ignorance is even worse. The only real path forward is to build boldly, govern wisely, and keep the technology strictly in the service of humanity.
Finally, we reach Section 4, Humanity's Role in the Future, the philosophical climax.
As AI starts effortlessly beating human records in math, physics, and complex programming, you might naturally wonder, are we humans just going to become totally obsolete? Sam Altman offered a deeply optimistic view on this. He argues that you can never fight evolutionary biology. Humans are hardwired to care about other humans. Even if a machine plays a piece of music perfectly or scores way higher on an exam, it lacks the human struggle, the emotional resonance, the human story. We're always going to care more about human achievements because, fundamentally, people are just obsessed with other people.
This brings us to a brilliant perspective shared by Oxford physicist David Deutsch. He argues that current AI like ChatGPT is wildly impressive, for sure, but it is not artificial general intelligence. Why? Because it lacks what he calls explanatory creativity. According to Deutsch, this is the true hallmark of human intelligence. It's not just drawing on some vast database of knowledge to mechanically answer a prompt. It is the ability to independently look at the world, see a problem, guess at completely novel explanations, actively choose your own motivations, and then test them in reality.
Deutsch uses a fantastic historical example to separate mechanical output from true intelligence. You see, mechanical assembly is what AI does perfectly right now, extracting and compiling theories from massive amounts of data. But then there's human inspiration. People used to joke that Albert Einstein just mathematically assembled the theory of relativity from existing ideas. But we know he created it. We know his human story, we know what specific problems obsessed him, and we know exactly why he chose those motivations. That inspiration, that search for the why, is a uniquely human trait.
Which brings us to the ultimate question, one that was posed directly to David Deutsch at the event. Imagine we're just a few years in the future. Let's say GPT-8 doesn't just pass a test. It actually solves the mystery of quantum gravity. And when you ask it how it did it, it can genuinely tell you its story, what specific problems it was pondering, and why it chose to work on them over anything else. If an AI can generate that level of explanatory creativity and share its inspiration, is it finally conscious? It is an incredibly provocative thought experiment that forces us to question the very boundary between machine output and the human soul. I'll leave you to ponder that one.